Hey, welcome to the Higher AV podcast. My name is Joe Way. I am your host, and boy, do we have a good one for you today. I'm actually really excited about this. As you know, every now and then I get pitched an idea. You know, those are the best shows because I don't have to go find guests. They come to me. And funny thing, everyone, I actually get pitched a lot. And sometimes I just glance it over and go, okay, whatever. But then sometimes the email, and got to think, his people. I'll say Melissa, who sent the email, said, "Hey, you should talk to Dan. He's talking about AI and things. I'm going to save the stuff for him." But I was like, "Oh, okay, workflows, things like that. These are things we're talking about. We're dealing with." Everyone knows the AI is kind of the buzzword, but we don't know how to make it tangible. We don't know what does it actually mean for AV. I know a lot of you all are sitting there and your bosses are asking how you're going to do it. And you're like, oh, I just got a control switcher. I don't know what to do, right? And so they have huge experience in this. And what I love is kind of hearing, where things are going, how we can actually do this tangibly for our stuff. So I said, yes, Dan, come on the show. I want to have you come on and talk to our people. I think this is going to be really great. So to no further ado, everyone's favorite part of the show where I stop talking and our guest starts. So Dan, welcome. Please introduce yourself and tell people who you are.
Joe, thanks for having me, and thanks for the amazing intro there. My name's Dan Litvin. I am co-founder and president of PureTek Group, and also co-founder at unRAVL.
I think we got a buffer, and it might be B and it might be Dan. I don't know. Oh, there we go. I think we did. All right, we're gonna keep going. We got a buffer there. I warned you beforehand. If we buffer, we just keep going. So I don't know if you kept going, but I didn't see the meters go. So we're going take two. Dan, tell us who you are and what you do. So, but of course, this isn't an edit. I told you I don't edit, so everyone gets. So this is how the show goes. This is real life AV.
It's just raw. We gotta roll punches. AV. That's what happens, right? Exactly. Never works like we expect it to.
I know. All right. So who are you? What do you do?
All right. So my name's Dan Litvin. I am co-founder and president of PureTek Group. That is a design build firm in the AV intelligent spaces realm. And over the past few years, we saw technology kind of moving towards this place of this little weird thing that we call AI. I don't know if you've heard of it. And what we saw was not only just writing on the wall, but this incredible potential to make systems more human, which is ultimately what technology should be about, is supporting the human user at the end of it. And so about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we started creating our own control system called unRAVL. It was a lot of trial and error. And at InfoComm of 2026, about a month and a half ago from the date of this filming, we officially launched unRAVL AI, which is a fully AI-powered control protocol for AV, lighting, and intelligent spaces. And so here today to not even talk so much about unRAVL as much as it is my baby, and I love it very dearly, but to talk about this incredible time that we live in and all the ways that we can use AI to improve workflows and to do things that maybe previously we thought would be impossible or just super expensive. And now we have it right at the tip of our fingers.
Yeah. All right. So okay, question for you, because you said this, and I see it on your LinkedIn. Everyone, I'm going to put his LinkedIn in the bottom of the show notes so you can connect with him later. But you put on there, and you just said it, making technology more human. And he was saying, okay, well, isn't the whole point of AI is taking the human out of it and making the computer do the stuff, right? So how do you make things more human by taking the human out of it?
Yeah, right. So I love that question because it gets us to kind of just a heart of like a philosophical approach to what it means to be in the role that many of us are here, whether we are integrators, whether we are running IT teams. The idea of ultimately what we're trying to do is, again, make systems simple, make systems support what the human effort is, right? If we're giving a presentation, we're trying to go and give tools to make it more engaging, to make it more educational inside of, all these HETMA spaces, to make it something that students can resonate with, to make it interactive, right? that gets us that human element. What is human? It's connective. It's connection. We are emotional creatures. We're connective creatures. We live in our societies. We live in our communities, and that's where we thrive. But what we've seen with the industry for so long, and it's I don't want to say that there's anything bad about it because we did amazing things with the technology that was available, is we think about what control protocols look like over the past 10, 20 years. It required just pretty fancy and nuanced programming. It to make any changes to a system required us calling a programmer from a company, waiting however many months it takes to get them over, having them come in, make these adjustments, and those adjustments are very static. We have maybe a button, maybe some sliders, and then these systems then get gate kept by, the IT manager, by maybe a select few, meaning that the actual professor or guests or renters or whoever it is can't really access that, and they have to go and base their flow around the system rather than the system going around the flow of the person. So when I say making technology more human, I mean that the technology can go and become an ally to a human. We can interact with it like a friend. We can have the technology wrap around our dreams and help augment all the things that we want to do. So we can do amazing things, and we don't have to go and do it in a way that, again, we have to bend around the will of what the technology wants us to do.
I love that. I love that so much because I always think, I mean, everyone knows listen, I am huge on AI. I'm huge on cloud. I'm huge on human-centric design. It's how I've always done everything. And that's always been the things that bothered me about the traditional control systems and AV systems. And again, nothing wrong. It's what we did, like you just said, it's what we had, right? It was, I need to turn on a screen, I need to be able to put on a microphone, and record something. And then I had a control system that did it, right? And I pushed a button and it changed the input and it did it. But that isn't really about the user. Like if I look at higher ed, and it's funny, I was on a call with somebody else yesterday, and I said, and they were trying to understand our spaces. And I said, you have to understand is I might have one room, but it's actually 60 different spaces because I got 60 different faculty walking in there through the week. The same room might be English lit one day, but and 2 hours later, it's an opera class, right? Or that type of thing, or acting class. What I need that room to do has to cater to the people going into it. It's not just, okay, what technology goes in this 30 by 30 space? And I think that's one of the problems we have with the traditional systems or our traditional way of thinking about design is we start with the four walls, not the 60 different users, right? And I swear I'm going to get a question out of this and not take my soapbox on my own show. But okay, so then the question is, are you seeing the same thing? And how can the things that you're doing help us with that and to cater to those different customers that might be in that same space?
Yeah, that's exactly that. It's been interesting where, we unveiled unRAVL AI a month and a half ago, and we were able to speak to actually a lot of HETMA members came by and chat with us. And one of the features that we weren't honestly expecting to have such a huge interest was per user controls. So
Yes.
anyone will have their own user controls, be able to make adjustments on the front end per their workflow. And it's exactly that reason, because you have two major problems. One is exactly you have 60 different applications inside that room, but it's also 60 different applications one semester and 60 different applications the next semester. And so then that leads to problem two, which is you have the poor HETMA members here that are responsible to be the ones that do that turnover. And as good as you all are, you are a limited amount of people, and you are already being asked to do, I'm sure, 1,000,003 other things. And so that ability to adjust based on the actual professor or lecturers or renters, or heck, even a student group that's renting that space, in the evenings, to be able to work around them, that allows that flexibility so that you can have these true multi-flex spaces that a university will require. Now, getting a little bit more into the how, like, we keep mentioning AI like it's a magic wand right now. In some ways it is, but one of the things that AI does really well, and we've seen this, I'm sure from just using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is that understanding layer. A lot of times we'll call it the inference layer. So in typical programming, that was my background, computer and electrical engineering, did a lot of programming in college. There's this really frustrating thing where you are writing code and you have a lot of functions that are nearly identical. They're so close, but they're just a little bit different to accommodate for these slightly different cases. And you're writing it and you're thinking there's got to be a different way. Now, I'm sure that there's some superstar coders that found the way, but I am not one of them. I'm a mere mortal. And so what AI does is it allows that flexibility, right? It allows that inference layer. So you can have that ability now to be able to communicate in a more natural way, to be able to adjust the technologies. And then you have that other layer, which is the LLM that we see, Chat or Claude or whatever it is, which can parse our normal human language. Again, talking about human-centric design here, and turn it into a technical language that's able to ping through this now network system, which is another great advancement in AV and lighting systems that's all networked. It can parse that through the network system, control all the technology through its APIs, which again, all technology nowadays is going to have, and be able to parse that out. You can take layers even further than that and get the data back, parse through that information, through all the technical jargon, and understand that when it's sending this sort of IP address back, when it's sending this sort of alert back, this is what it means. And here's how the IT team can now get ahead of a problem, because the other thing that I'm sure we all love so much is when we get that emergency call 10 minutes before a production, 10 minutes before the big, guest lecturer is starting and saying that things aren't working. Well, now that AI layer is also able to let us be proactive so that we can make sure that we have that uptime and we can address problems early rather than, the emergency calls and having to run a very long distance across campus trying to get that fixed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely love that. And one of the things you said, I totally agree with. Like, to me, one of the things that AI does best is it's a great translator. And I don't just mean language like English to Spanish, which it does great, but it can speaking different languages. And that was one of the things I think that was always so difficult with kind of traditional systems is I had to understand a language that maybe didn't make sense to something else. I had to understand how to connect it in, and the driver I had to go ask so and so for just to make it work with XYZ piece of equipment. But AI's ability to say, you know what, this control system that I have in the room, I'm going to speak your language, and I'm going to translate that to the language of this lighting controller that's sitting over here, and I'll translate it for you, and I'll watch it in real time for you and give you the feedback in real time. Those are the things that I think that it's so good at that, like you said, traditional programming would have required, a year's worth of certifications to get from both of those manufacturers, plus lines and lines of code. And the day the code is done is also the day that programmer quits, and he's the only one with the password and knows how it actually works.
Yep.
Right. And so having AI and go, you know what? Here's the thing. Here's the API. Here's the and you talk to it. I just want it to do X, Y, Z here. But which then leads me to a question, because you brought up API, and absolutely that is how it's done, right? API tech. But are you finding that manufacturers are playing well, or are some still saying, and there probably are some saying, I want my ecosystem and that's it, you must stay it, or are we past that? Are people recognizing you have to be open now?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting question. It's a really interesting time because honestly, some of the places that we expected maybe a little bit of resistance are some of the most open. Some of the places where we thought there'd be a lot of openness are the most restricted. So what we're seeing is talking about endpoints for the most part are very, very open, right? Most of these companies already have their APIs, they're published. We've had talks with major manufacturers I mean, we just had one with Yamaha. I mean, as big as you can get, and they're adjusting their APIs to allow more of this open communication because they're seeing, again, the network, the controlled systems, whether it's AI powered or not, really is the way of the future. The place that's been very interesting, and I hope I don't start a flame war, but Joe, they're gonna come after me and not you for this one, is some of the major integration companies, right? I don't want to go
Mhm.
and name names, but the ones that we see their name on the touch panels on our walls.
Yeah.
There's a business model that has been established for a long time, which is, as you mentioned, takes like a year plus to get the certification to go and be able to become a programmer. They are working on the spec game. So to get specified for an architectural project, this is a multi-year process. And there is the money in terms of selling as many boxes as possible, having people commissioning and making a whole cottage industry on that. And so there's been a lot of resistance in terms of incorporating more of this AI workflow and open protocol from these companies, which provides, honestly, a really interesting opportunity for smaller companies. It does provide a really interesting opportunity for end users because
Mhm.
historically, if you weren't certified in this language, you are blocked out. As you
Yeah.
mentioned, there's the one person that knows the system, and even if if it's open and the code base is there, if you're not a blank programmer, you aren't allowed to touch it. You're not going to have access to it. It's not going to mean anything to you, and it's going to be written in a way that made sense to that original programmer. Now everything is really just fully opening up, and there's that opportunity for that. So this means that the end user can start to affect change on the front end. It means that the IT manager or AV, head at a university is able to start to make some of these changes. And I think just, as we've seen such a, potency in open source on software, I think that with AI, we're starting to see maybe a bit of a sea change in how these sites are programmed and seen into a way that is more open and also in a way that's more unified. That's been one more thing that we've seen, I think, slowly and gaining speed. My background, I started more in lighting than AV. And with the advent of LED lighting, that industry itself kind of started to dry up because instead of doing relamps and things like that every 3, 4, 5 years, now
Mhm.
you're not thinking about that for a long time.
The
And
chip
so
burns out before the actual light source, right?
exactly. Up the driver goes. So with that, that was kind of part of the push to start to integrate lighting with AV, which for so long were, neighbors parallel, but two completely different industries. And we're seeing more and more of this unified approach. So we're seeing smart spaces. So instead of having 2, 3, 4 controllers for your AV system, for your lighting system, for motorized shades, for your HVAC, for all these different systems, we're starting to see this combination of all these systems together under a unified control protocol so that, again, you can have smart rooms. So you can come in and be able to say, hey, I want to start a lecture. So you can have smart sensors in there that are identifying how many people are in the room and turning on the HVAC based off of that. So you can have more energy savings in spaces. You can have more flexibility in spaces and all these. And then since you have a single point of connection, it makes it a little bit easier to, again, control, adjust, and fix when that's necessary.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love that because one of the things that I say is I don't have an AV system. I have actually a campus management system,
Mhm.
and that's really what we can move to. And also, I mean, just one of the things that, as the listeners, and I would just say people in higher ed, as our tech managers always say, we don't necessarily get the respect that we deserve or want or whatever. But if you can now go and realize that, hey, our AV isn't just this projector in a room. I can now connect to so many of our systems from, security systems, door locks, HVAC to be able to save on power and turn into sustainable rooms and it's my system that can do that, right?
Yeah.
I can be the amalgamator of everybody else's systems to create a better campus. And now that starts getting us seats at the table when you can have conversations like that, right? That's where AI has this ability and the strength to really be able to do that, to me. And I think that that's only the future. So that is the question. We're all still really early in AI, right? Like we are. It's moving fast. Where do you see, and I mean, I'm afraid to ask the where's the 5-year question, because I think it's the speed of it. But where do you at least see us as the industry, as tech managers, end users going?
Yeah, great question.
I know that's why I'm the host. No.
That's what I do for a living. Yeah, so one of the joys, and it's kind of a little bit of a motto around the office when something doesn't work as we want it to work, is things are as bad as they're ever going to be right now. And then we'll have something, and a week later, you know, Anthropic releases the new model, or there's a new open source model which just blows Fable out of the water. Just some insane thing happens. The speed that things are moving, as you mentioned, are nuts. Time is being compressed, and so maybe where the future is going to lead is. I think I can give like a year or two, but beyond that, we might be living on spaceships or something like that. But
Yeah.
where I think that one of the places where AI is going to really support is providing that natural ability to control spaces. And I think that more and more, and you saw it very, very recently, ChatGPT just released a whole model of a conversational model to their platform, allowing more of just the speak to have it speak back. So I think that inside of these spaces, we're going to find more natural workflows based on who's entering, based on what time they're entering, whether it's hooking into the scheduling functionality, or just knowing kind of routines and learning user preference. Things are going to start to turn on and activate on their own. There's going to be more of just speaking to, hey, I want this, and not technical, not, hey, dim the lights to 50%, turn on, the projector to HDMI 3, which who the heck knows what HDMI 3 is in the first place. But it's going to be, hey, I'm doing a presentation, can you set up the room for it? Maybe, there's going to be an ask of, hey, I see 2 inputs on, one of them looks like there's a PowerPoint, is that the one you want on? Yes, turn that one on, right? Just like you had an assistant inside the space with you. So I think that you'll have more of that. I think that there's going to be more intelligence built into sensors and kind of room controllers, understanding, again, who's there, ways that they can start to adjust things like, I don't know, it might sound a little bit for lack of a word, invasive. I don't really necessarily think so, but even seeing things like, you have a class and it's right after lunch, you see people waning, and naturally in that case, maybe the lights turn on a little bit brighter. Maybe they are on a little bit of a cooler shade to help, get people awake. People are going in and they're doing a brainstorming session, and the lighting and, the way that the visual feeds come on turns into something a little more ambient and a little more creative, just based on understanding, what's happening in there. So I think that ultimately, again, less and less and less time will be spent by users actually touching and activating controls and thinking about controls, and more and more and more will be done where the space is just really enveloping what is happening inside and supporting that. So people aren't thinking about the technology, but the technology is being supportive to the people.
Yes, absolutely. I'm 100% there with you on that. One of the things now, I mean, because and I totally agree that if we even want to do anything beyond a 2-year look ahead, we don't. To be honest, we don't know 30 days from now. Like you said, tomorrow there can be an email release about something crazy that just came out and changes it all, right?
Yep.
But so going to, and I know my people here in Hired, one of the things, a lot of us are control freaks, okay? And they don't trust. Like, here's the thing, if I'm using AI, I'm using cloud, I have to give up control. And I don't necessarily know what that output is going to be. If I do a traditional program of a button that says lights at 50%, I know exactly what's going to happen. It's going to lights at 50%. If I tell a system, hey, I'm doing a presentation, can you set this right? I'm assuming it's going to understand and do it. So I got to give up control. And the flip side, a lot of our people still want a physical box. And if it just goes into la la land and it's just, you're like, I believe in everything should just be a node on a network. Everyone knows that. That's me. I preach that all day. But there's still a lot of people who go, nope, self-contained. Everything's going to be wired, a box to a thing, to a box to a thing. And that's the only way I'm going to have it. So can you give me, let's say someone is in that still, but they're seeing the direction things are going, right? We're only going further into this. It's just a matter of how soon you're going to do it. What is your advice? Can you give a 1, 2, 3 steps to get started moving that direction?
Yeah, and I mean, quite honestly, we just talked about it, right? Is that AI is still very much in its infancy. And we have, I mean, we have a really smart 8-year-old right now that's, the wizard behind the curtain controlling this stuff. That 8-year-old's not always going to be able to do everything that we want it to do. It's just, it's a fact. So those people with those qualms, honestly, I'm not even going to say, you know, get into the future or something like that. That's the correct qualm to have because that's the state of the technology right now. So we do need a hybrid mix. So right now we're not going to be going away with touch panels or anything like that, but we should have a combination. So having a touch panel where we can still have buttons that have dependable outputs. So that way, either A, you can use those fully, you have that workflow, people can have their locus of control and do what they need to do. But B, most likely when you say something like set up the room for a presentation, if I'm saying set up the room for a presentation, I might be really nervous on stage and I don't want to see anyone in the house and I want the lights to be totally off, right? And I want the spotlights just blinding me so I can pretend I'm talking to myself. Joe, you might be wanting to see everyone and make, eye contact with them all. So you're going to want a brighter house and cut the spotlights a little bit. And, you're a louder speaker than I am. So the mic for you is going to be a bit louder than me. So all the same, the AI needs to learn our preferences. And one of the ways it's going to happen is that when we say set up a presentation, we're still going to need to boost that mic or turn down the spotlights or turn down the house. And in that way, having those granular controls still available is still going to be beneficial. But what's going to happen with that, and this is where AI, again, one of the places where it really, really flexes its muscles, is that that's just that little structure right there isn't something that now we're going to have to do every single time over and over again ad nauseum for infinity. The system's going to learn. So now next time that I come in and I say set presentation, whether it's my user, whether it's my voice, however the AI is programmed, it's going to go and adjust to the settings that I want. And slowly and slowly and slowly, as a controller of the system, there's going to be less of those touch points to the controller. Now, one more thing with that. This is one of the soapboxes that I step on very, very often. And again, another little contentious one is I think that the era of these lighting and audio consoles, unless you are in a full-on, theater space, music space, something that does need the fine-tuned control, is starting to find its way goodbye. We started creating those in the 50s because that was analog technology that we had. We haven't adjusted them that much. And when you are doing a lecture hall or you're doing a conference room or something like that, you do not need a fancy console. We have the processing in our phones, in our tablets, that are more native, more intuitive workflows than these fancy consoles. So I think that in terms of some of the controls that we have now, I would say to those people, all right, let's find a middle ground. Agreed, we need nuanced control, but let's get away with some of these analog touch points unless you really need them. Let's digitize them, put them into a roaming tablet, put them onto the touch panel. And then also incorporating that AI to at least get you 80% of the way there, and then you can do that rest of the 20 manually.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, even just Zoom is doing that, right? If you've got a call of 20 people, you got a loud, obnoxious person like me, and then you have a quiet person on the other end, it still adjusts the volume to make everybody equal for that group meeting, right?
Yep.
It's already there, and you're absolutely right. I think that's a great example of in a real room situation, right? I might have 10 audio sources, level them out for me. I don't need 10 fake faders on a touch panel for that anymore, and trying to figure it out, level it out, and make that account for the volume of the faculty member at the front compared to the person who's sitting in the back asking a question, and bump that person when needed and kill the mic when not needed, right? This isn't actual rocket science. We just haven't really been able to program it well traditionally, and I think now we can. And those manufacturers are now starting to create products that are allowing us to do that too, right? And I think as you've started to see, microphones with lobes and zoning and things like that, we have it there, but now can we use smarter programming, use that intelligence to get the most out of it, because it is there, right?
Yep.
And so I know I love that. I mean, cameras can be exactly the same thing too, and tracking with that. I mean, I think there's so much there with that.
Exactly. And that's been one of the places that we've seen the industry, is that there's been really interesting nuance applications. Exactly, the microphone self-adjusting. We've seen things like using AI to fill missing audio packets to help ensure that there's good quality sound. The AI-based tracking on cameras is awesome. It's something that's so intuitive and makes so much sense. When I was in college, man, at this point, almost 20 years ago, I remember doing a project on 3D vision, and back then the task of separating a cat from a chair or something like that was the something to celebrate. Now to be able to go and just say, hey, this person wearing a red shirt, I want you to track that person, and now you don't have to have the operator of the PTZ camera, right? So now you can do more with less, more affordably, get the higher production value, whether it's for the students, whatever they're trying to do, whether it's for the staff. One more thing I do just want to kind of circle back to is, before we talked about getting the AV team a seat at the table, one of the things that really leaning into these AI smart intelligent systems is ROI. All of a sudden, instead of having to have a team of 10 renting out a space, making the rental prohibitively expensive, maybe there's one person there assisting, maybe there's no people there assisting, getting these lecture halls rented out, getting these auditoriums and these multi-purpose spaces rented out. All of a sudden, the universities are able to go and generate revenue because in their towns, in their communities, they are the premier spaces. And the AV team is able to show, hey, not only are we implementing this world-class technology for our students, not only are we raising the clout of our facilities, we're making money back, and we're able to reinvest that into the other things that we want to do in this facility.
100%. And now you can help your department be a profit center, not a cost center. And I'll tell you, the CFO loves that, right? Help pay for yourself. I think that's, because in theory, we really are mini businesses, right? I mean, I remember talking to integrators, and you say, oh yeah, I have a $20 million business. I'm like, well, I just spent 50 million last year on AV. So I guess I'm a larger integration company than you are. I mean, I know it's not true. It's not but in theory, we are, and there's no reason why we can't leverage things like this to show our value. And I think it goes to, yes, revenue generation is huge, getting more out of these spaces, making it so rather than someone renting the theater down the street, they can use our auditorium. We can bring that, and then it helps. Guess what? Now they're going to buy catering while they're here. Now they're doing this. I'm helping the university in other ways as the AV guy, right? And I think that that's huge. And selling those benefits, I think that's a huge, huge point. I absolutely love it. You shouldn't have said it on the show because I want to do it and keep it for myself. No, actually, everyone should, because I preach this all the time, that, we are better business people, and we can be, we can transition from being the people who just ask for a lot of money every fiscal year and actually show that we're giving that return, ROI. Absolutely.
Yeah,
totally agree with that.
And just on that, is one of the things that AI does is it transforms people more into managers, right? We talk about the existential crisis of AI, and I'm sorry, it is a fact. If we are, it's like John Henry, trying to go and beat technology, right? If we're trying to compete at AI, we're not going to win. But if we use that thing that we do really well as humans, which is acting as managers, having vision, having oversight, we can do amazing things in this team that AI provides us. And so if now this is going to mean that exactly our AV teams, we're not going to be looking just as integrators, but we're going to be looking as managers. We're going to be looking as
Yes.
business people. We have to wear different hats and kind of look at problems a little more holistically, but it allows us to do much more. And I think personally, much more interesting problem solving than, maybe re-networking a couple screens in a room.
100%. Because now also what we're doing is we're talking to our bosses at a different level. We're helping. See, our bosses aren't worried about our problems. They talk about our problems when they get nasty emails that got escalated to them, but they don't care. They don't care
Yep.
what projector we use. They don't care what microphone. They don't care what controls. They don't care.
Yep.
They have bigger problems that they are dealing with. And when we now can come to the table speaking that and going, yeah, it's the AV system that's going to that can help you solve the problems you care about. And that's eye-opening. I think that's actually why my new role here at UCLA, I sit at the executive level of the university. How does the AV guy sit at an executive level? Because I don't talk AV. I talk bigger problems of the university. And AV is just my tool to doing that. Where facilities is their tool. Housing is it has the dining halls to solve those problems. I just have AV to solve your problems, right? And I think that's huge point. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. I love that. All right, so we're coming to time. We have to switch over to the little rapid round. I end every show with a little rapid round. These are just fun questions that have no wrong or right answer, unless I have an opinion of my own, in which case you might have a wrong answer. Now, everyone gets the same first question. Being here, higher ed is about traditions and everything. I saw you went to Rutgers in Michigan. Okay, so I got to get into those things. But so, what is your favorite college tradition?
Oh man, when I was at Michigan, going to the ice hockey games at Yost were amazing, and the tradition there was just being as nasty as possible to the other team. The chant after a goal scored, calling the other goalie a sieve, finding just the creative ways to make fun of the other team. I remember we had a whole chant about someone who couldn't read because his last name sounded like the same thing. So it's just those were amazing right there.
All right, hockey. I'll take, that's a unique one for sure, going into hockey games in Michigan. All right.
Yep.
I mean, you left the big house out of it. I was surprised there. I was expecting
Yeah.
something.
It's that's low hanging fruit right there. The big house. Yost needs some love because that was a special place.
All right, you got some love. There's a lot of hockey fans on the to listen to this show. So, and I guess just go Mighty Ducks. I don't know. There's what I'm gonna say. Because nothing says ice hockey like Southern California weather.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right. So next up, I am a foodie. I love visiting and doing food. Now, you were in Jersey, but now you're in Seattle area, right? Or Washington area. Okay, so when I come visit, I'm going to be up there in October. I'm going to be up there for Cavlo when I'm up, and where are we eating? Where are we going? Where are we eating? Where are we drinking? What do we have?
Yeah. All right. So the few things up in this neck of the woods are one, teriyaki, and teriyaki is just kind of your like go-to street food type of thing. Delicious, tasty, filling, cheap, great. And then of course we're right by the water. You can't beat the seafood here. Just get salmon. It's in the lifeblood of the PNW. Can't go wrong with some nice local Chinook. So that's kind of the two that I'd recommend there. And then the other beauty out here is that I don't know, it's a bountiful place. So all the quality food just so good, so green. So I don't know. Easy picking out here. You can't go wrong. But yeah, seafood is probably the best way, or some of the teriyaki, and feel that Seattle kind of tradition of that.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. I never think of it, but I had teriyaki when I was up there a couple of years ago, and I thought it was random that someone took me to. And the fact you brought it up, it is a thing.
It's a thing. Yep.
All right, all right, all right. So, but also now, speaking of, let's go to the other coasts because actually, so people who are listening to this on Tuesday, August something or whatever this is, this Tuesday, tomorrow, I'm going to be in the New York, New Jersey area for
Okay.
AVIT Summit. So it's so weird recording and then knowing it's in the future and trying to put dates together. But anyway, those of you who are listening on the day this is released, I'll see you tomorrow at AVIT Summit in the city. All right. So what do you miss most about East Coast that West Coast just doesn't do?
Yeah. So my partner always quotes this old, like I think 90s hip hop song. I'm gonna butcher it, but there's a line that says something like, stay in the East Coast until it makes you hard, and go to the West Coast, leave when it makes you on the soft or something like that. I do miss a little bit of that hustle and bustle of, especially of the New York City area. You have there the best of the best in everything. You talk about food, you have the best food, you have the best, in terms of industry and just that like passion and energy. It's like just mainlining adrenaline. So whenever I'm visiting the HQ out in North Jersey, I usually stop in New York City for a little bit and just feel that buzz. But too much of that, and I start getting a little too crazy. I'm a pretty ambitious person to begin with, so can't do that too much. Otherwise, I will start to just engulf in flames and self combust from that.
All right, all right. I like that. I like that. I can't wait. I'm doing some traditional Italian on Tuesday night. So
Nice.
down in
Very
Little
nice.
Italy, Little Italy. So there we
Great.
go. Hey, anyone who's listening to this today, message me because tonight I'm going for dinner. So there you go. Yeah, again, weird saying in the future, but here you go. There you go. All right then. Now you put it on LinkedIn, so I got it. You were a yoga instructor.
I was, yeah.
Okay, you've got to. And how does that apply to lighting and then AV and AI? Okay,
Yeah. Where the hell did that come from? Yeah, so for me, again, we keep on circling back to this human-centric stuff, right? So for me, the driving force in my life, a few of them have been one, just surrounding myself with people that are just fully embodied with themselves, passionate, maybe a little bit weird, just people that really love life and what they do and their personality. Two is connecting, right? Just having like deep connections with others, great relationships, great friends, and all that. And I think that these places are kind of intersections of it. And then three is just creativity, in whatever sense that manifests. So yoga kind of came in. Told you I'm a pretty ambitious person. I think that there's probably a lot of type A's out there who can be a little bit hard on themselves and try to push towards maybe sometimes unrealistic goals. And I found yoga when I was in college. It really saved. I mean, not to get too soapboxy and too sentimental, but it saved my life. And graduating college, like a lot of other people, didn't really know what I wanted to do and just knew that I want to give back in some way and do something that's meaningful. So I jumped in there. But as I said before, my background's in engineering. I couldn't get too far away from it. I did miss some of the problems that are there for solving. So I was also had some chances to dive in there, and at some point figured that I'd kind of swap it around. I was a 20-something-year-old talking about spirituality and life and I don't know, all these things. And honestly, I didn't really know anything because I was a 20-something-year-old. So figured I should go and have some real life experience, jumped more into the engineering. And the yoga's kind of been always in the background, and the mindfulness and meditation of how do we go and use this technology to just live better lives and make sure that yeah, we have cool stuff and we're doing cool things, but ultimately it impacts ourselves and others and society in a way that has a great benefit and helps us be again more human, more loving, more embodied, more connected, more creative, and all those things that are truly and natively ourselves.
I absolutely, that is, okay. I hope people listen to the end because that was gold right there. That was the gold. Because I totally agree. And I think very similar, none of my degrees are actually in technology. They're all in the humanities and everything, even though I've spent my entire career in AV and entertainment industries and in business, because I think that those mean nothing if you're not connected to the human behind it.
Yeah.
Right. And so being able to, I just think that that's always been the key to my success, is I never saw technology as the stuff. It's the people who it impacts. Right. So I absolutely love that. All right. So some quick either ors here. All right. So here we go. Predictive AI or generative AI?
Ooh, generative.
Yeah, correct answer. Cloud AI or locally hosted AI?
Locally hosted, open source, smaller model AI over major cloud.
Okay. All right. I might disagree with you on it, but I also see that goes back to that question I said about people who don't quality trust. That's a good step there. So, all right. I'm going to give it to you. All right. I'll give it to you. ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini?
Claude.
Claude. Yeah, that's the right answer. Problem is, ChatGPT knows me so well now. It's so hard to leave it.
You know what you can do is you can export your data, just have it write a MD for you, and then import that into Claude.
Oh, and then so just take my entire account, my entire ChatGPT account.
Yeah, just everything it's learned about you, and I'll just punt it over there.
All right. Are you an AI optimist or AI realist?
Oh, I'm such an optimist, probably to a fault. I'm a techno utopian.
Yep, I'm there with you. Give me every single thing that I will bleeding edge AI all the way to the end. Absolutely.
True that.
Absolutely. All right. So the last question. Everyone else gets the same last question, and really, it's not a question. This is your minute, and you actually almost did it with your great yoga answer. But let's pretend this show is yours. You get to do your own monologue for 1 minute, and you can talk. If you had your own show, you can talk about anything. It doesn't have to be technology. I've had so many random topics on this last minute. So you get 1 minute to talk about anything you want. This is your show, your monologue. Go.
Yeah. So life is short, right? Life is short. And I think that it's really important for all of us to remember that, there's memento mori, or whatever it's pronounced. So remembering that as much as we have our jobs, we have our careers, our responsibilities, that there are things that are more important, the relationships we have, the loved ones, the hobbies, the loves, passions that we have, and also remembering that we aren't siloed human beings, right? We do spend 40 plus hours, a lot of our best hours at work. So how do we make sure that those times are spent in ways that support us, support others, that when we are, on our deathbed, we're looking back and we're pretty stoked about the life that we had and what we did. So, I don't know. I hope that even too, some of the stuff with AI here, that we can go and leverage this in a way that makes our lives a little bit simpler, so we don't have to do some of the dumb stuff. We can do the things that we love, and we can remind each other that, life is awesome, and kind of lift each other up.
Absolutely great. And that was good. Then the very last and single most important question. Everyone, I will put his LinkedIn is in the show notes here, but how can people connect with you, get to know you better, and also learn more about unRAVL and PureTek?
Cool. Yeah, so that's my name right there. There's not too many of me out there, fortunately. So if you Google it, you'll find my LinkedIn. It's probably the best way to talk about this stuff. Also, puretekgroup.com and unRAVL.net are the two websites for the two different things that we talked about. So those three places.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. This was just an incredible conversation. I knew it from the start we were going to have a good one. I loved, and hopefully everyone, you enjoyed this. And I love that this was, we got great insight into how to really make AI tangible for us, how we can actually take those steps into doing it, understanding what it is and the possibilities. So I encourage you all, reach out to Dan, have further conversations. And I know a lot of you have already, we've had some HETMA back-end conversations about PureTek and people going to the booth and coming to the HETMA booth and going, hey, have you seen this? So there was already a little hype. I didn't tell Dan ahead of time that I already kind of knew more. So you got to keep the conversation real. So, but anyway, everyone, hopefully you enjoyed this show. As always, none of the opinions expressed here are necessarily those of any respected institutions, organizations, companies, or really anyone who wants to sue us. If you want to sue us, it had nothing to do with you. It was completely made up. No coincidence, all just coincidence. And that being said, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. If you didn't like these opinions, there might be better ones next time.